This is nice.
You're gonna wire him up.
The mottled nature of the sand right here, these are raindrop prints in sand. This is what it looks like in sand. You typically don't get craters when it rains in sand. It gets all mottled like this.
And it's important to observe this here because we're going to compare it with what's claimed to be fossil raindrop impressions in the Coconino. It's good to compare the present with what's supposed to be preserved from the past.
We are looking at a big block of Coconino Sandstone that rolled down somewhere from up on this big slope. And what's of interest here, there are dozens and dozens of small burrows that go vertically and horizontally through the rock. So as we look close right here, we can see a number of pits that are in here. But we can also see a number of horizontal marks in this rock as well, and they occur on many different layers in this rock. These layers are just millimeters apart, and every one of these layers contains these. And if we go back even deeper into the rock, we again can see these burrows continue on these horizontal surfaces very deep into the rock. So this whole rock is just loaded with these. And up here, at this part up here, we see some horizontal burrows. There's just dozens of them in here. So either a worm or a snail or something crawled through the sand and left these tracks. Now these are important because some people might initially just look at these little dots in the rock right here, these little craters, and think these are raindrop impressions or something. But these little crater-like things or these circle-like things are clearly associated with the round little depressions. And we're actually looking at the bottom side of the rock. There's torweep sandstone on the top of this rock. So I think we're looking at the bottom. And all these little circles and horizontal burrows are associated with each other. So although somebody might call these raindrop prints because of a preconception that this is a desert sandstone, I don't think that it is. And I think these are clearly some trace fossils and associated structures in the Coconino Sandstone.